To start with, fit a workpiece and fix into place using the bracket offset nuts. With a marker pen, draw a filled square in the bottom right hand corner of the workpiece. Fit a tool into the spindle that can be used to engrave a narrow line. Then start the spindle and move the tool down onto the black square. Engrave a straight horizontal line using the axis jog controls. Once done, move the tool away, but don't move in the y-axis. Remove the tool from the spindle. Fit the nut with a 1/2 inch collet onto the spindle. Place the pulley inside the collet and push it up as far as it will go. With the nut pushed up, tighten the nut. Loosen the screw that holds the motor in place, as shown, then remove the motor from the cradle. Also remove the screw that holds the extract pipe in place, then remove the pipe from its holder. Then place the floating head accessory onto the spindle as shown. Place the motor back in its cradle. We now need to fit a tool. Use the 1mm drill for this. To set up the tool, place the tooltip into the tool holder. Make sure the flat edge of the tooltip lines up with the flat edge of the hole in the tool holder and push the tooltip down as far as it will go. Once the tool is set up, place it into the floating head accessory and screw it in as shown. Bear in mind it has a left-handed thread. We now need to align the floating head. To do this, first move the tool tip close to the line, but only move in the X and Z axis. Do not move in the Y axis. To line the tip up with a line, there is a screw at the back of the floating head accessory that moves the head in the Y axis. Tighten this screw until the tip of the tool lines up with the engraved line, as shown. Once done, tighten up the lock nut on this screw. Once that is done, the floating head is aligned. Now tighten up all the screws as shown to fix the floating head. Also place the extract pipe back in its holder and use a thumb screw to fix it in place. Fit the drive belt around both pulleys. Dial the micrometer gauge on the spindle to 0. Within the software, set the current user to administrator. First we need to add 2 new clamps, so go to Settings, Machine and select Datums. The clamps that need to be set up are the floating head and the 1.6mm PCB double-sided jig. If they are not in the drop-down box, as is the case here, you need to add them by clicking the Add button. For the first clamp, make sure Vice is selected and click OK. Then type in the new clamp name, which is floating head, and click OK. To add the second clamp, click Add again. This time select rotational free jar between centers and press OK. Then type in the new clamp name, which is 1.6mm PCB double-sided jig, and click OK. If it asks to save changes, click Yes. Now we need to set up these clamps, so select the floating head clamp and click Setup. The software asks us to fit a workpiece. Just skip this part as we've already done this earlier. It next asks us to fit a tool and enter its diameter. The 1mm drill should already be inserted, so just enter this value. Put the machine into manual mode and start the spindle. The software then asks you to touch onto the left edge of the workpiece. Using the axis jog controls, move the tool to the left edge of the workpiece. We just want to touch onto the edge, so use the feed pot to slow down the feed rate. Once close to the edge, slow the feed rate down to its minimum setting and pulse the drill towards the workpiece until it touches. Once done, click Next. It then asks you to touch onto the back face. Just repeat the same process but for the back face. Once done, click Next. The floating head clamp is now set up. Make a note of the X and Y datum, as these are needed for the next clamp, and then click OK to finish. Next we need to set up the 1.6mm PCB double-sided jig. Go back to Datums and select this clamp from the drop-down box. Here we just input the values manually. The X datum is the X datum for the floating head plus 466.82mm. Calculate this and input the value. The Y datum is the Y datum for the floating head minus 148mm. Calculate this and input the value. We also need to input the center height. This is the height of the provided PCB fixture board plus 0.8mm. Therefore we need to measure the height of the board and then add 0.8mm. Enter this value into the software. The clamp is now set up, so click OK to finish. Finally, we need to set up the tool offsets for the new tools. The tools to set up are the 3.18mm chamfer V-groove, the 1mm drill, and the 0.8mm drill. To do this, go to the tool library. Check first to see these drills are already in the library. Check all the drills in case they are there but not fitted. Here we can see that these tools do not exist in the library, therefore we need to add them. To add a tool, click on the plus sign. First we will need to set up the V chamfer groove, so double click on HSR chamfer V groove. Input the values as shown here. Next we will set up one of the drills. Double click on VMC drill and again input the values as shown. Repeat the process for the final drill. As you can see here, the 3 new drills are now in the library. The tool tips need to be placed in the tool holders as we did before. Set up the chamfer V-groove first by double clicking on it and then clicking the setup button. The workpiece is already fitted, so click OK. Next we need to enter the height of the workpiece, so measure this height and input the value. It then asks us to start the spindle. Here we don't exactly follow the instructions. Still start the spindle, however stop it straight away. From now on ignore the instructions. Instead bring the floating head down until it touches the surface. We now need to bring the head down a further 1mm. To do this, go to the feedback screen. Here the Z position is 177.14mm. Move the head down until it is at 176.14mm. Use the feed pot to move smaller distances at a time. Once done, click OK. This sets this point as the offset. Insert the V-chamfer groove and make sure the grub screw on the brass collar is loose. Move the tool so that it touches the surface of the material and set the brass collar at this position. We now want to move the head up 5mm. Like before, go to the feedback screen and move the head up until the Z distance is 5mm greater. Once done, set the micrometer gauge on the floating head to 10. Now we are ready to set up the remaining 2 drills. Go back to the tool library. Like previously, click on each drill separately and click Setup. Enter the same workpiece height and again start the spindle and stop it straight away. When it asks you to lower the tool, remove the V-chamfer groove and insert the drill you clicked on to set up. Here we clicked on the 1mm drill to set up. Insert the drill, again ensuring that the grub screw on the brass collar is loose. Again set the brass collar so the drill touches the workpiece and click OK on the software. Then just repeat the whole process for the final drill and you are done.